Hi, everyone. My name is Diana Iakoslavis, and I'm sitting here today with Cam Woolley, retired police officer, OPP police officer, and Sandra Ziskin, managing partner of Diamond and Diamond Lawyers. And today we're discussing stop signs. Something that really irks me, which is the stop signs. Stop sign.
Why does the stop sign irk you?
It bothers me because, listen, okay, what I was getting to was essentially it's a four-way stop, right? In a situation when you're in traffic, you usually have a camera or you have something there to verify what happened in the case of a car accident.
Oh, so you're saying if somebody comes to a four-way stop and we don't know who had the right of way, you're annoyed that an accident happens and nobody could...
There's no witnesses, right? Because it's your word versus mine, right?
And Cam, how does it work? My recollection was at a four-way stop, it's to the right? Whoever's
That's
to the
right.
right?
The person on the right, if you arrive at the same time, has the right of way.
Okay, good way to remember it. All right, very good.
That I know. Sometimes I get to a stop sign and I'm looking at the person like, go, and I'm waving it through because I'm just like, I obviously am aware of the fact that it's the right.
Right.
But in the event that there is a collision and I tell someone like yourself, an officer, and I say to them, officer, I made a full-way stop. I made my stop. This person blew through the stop sign or this person stopped and then we both kind of went at the same time. Whose fault would it be in that case?
So what do you do, Cam? How do you do it so you make sure you know who's responsible?
Well, some of them are the classic he said, she said. If there's no witnesses, remember it's different for police and injury law. For the police, we're there to determine if there's a breach of the law and if there is there sufficient evidence to prove it. And if the evidence isn't there, we're not going to lay charges. And especially with these collision reporting centers, charges are pretty rare. So that people come in, each one says the other guy did it. Even if it was kind of clear, there may not be a charge. So it's going to be up to the insurance fault determination regulation. But the best way to protect yourself is a dash camera, because you can't rely on the city traffic cameras. And by the way, they don't record for privacy reasons.
Right.
Most of the recordings are from either a private security or something like that. Because the ones that are at the intersections are just to monitor traffic.
But I always wondered, so like in a collision, like Diana was saying, where it's a four-way stop and we don't know who did it, it's a he said, she said, and you're coming to the four-way stop. Then the police officer, let's say a police officer does come on the scene, not on the collision reporting. And you know and I know in driver one section of the report is usually who the police officer deems at fault. Driver two is the one they don't deem at fault, even if they don't charge, right? So for those of you that don't know, in a collision report, it has driver one, driver two. And we kind of know in the business that driver one is the one that is at fault and driver two is the one the police doesn't believe is at fault. So in a case like that, how would they determine, is it just their gut instinct? Do they believe more? How would they figure out who's driver one, who's driver two?
It may be more random than that, Sandra. And a lot of people that know will be upset if they're named as driver one. But a lot of these things are a 50-50, and especially even on private property, still got to make the report if it's a reportable crash. So you can't always rely on who's at driver one, especially if the police show up. There's typically a little in the way of physical evidence or tire marks. If somebody was sort of speeding through, there might be some skid marks that shows that. But if they both stopped and then just bumped into each other, you may not have enough evidence.
I want to back up for a second because you said you guys wouldn't lay charges, right? If there was like no witnesses, there's none of that. There's no charges laid. So then how does that go to you then? Like, do you do forensic things and you see like...
No. We reenact it. At Diamond and Diamond, we all get together and reenact it.
North, right. Saying somebody's going west or whatever, and I hit their passenger side door, but they clearly ran the stop. But it would almost look as though I'm the one that created the collision.
Right. So in some cases, we do get forensic engineer. I'm joking, but we do get forensic engineers to recreate it based on they can look at the damage, they can look at the cars, they can see where things sort of were the position of things. Mm-hmm. And then they can sort of recreate it and say, this is what happened. This is what speed we think the cars were going on. These are the speed that we, and this is where I think everyone was in the intersection, and they can kind of determine fault. Don't forget, for civil, it's on a balance of probabilities, right? So it's on what's more likely than not. Unlike the police who have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt. We only have to prove on a balance of probability. So if it's more likely than not, car A was speeding and went through the stop sign than car B, that's basically all we need. Police, and Cam, correct me if I'm wrong, police will only do their own reconstruction if there's a fatality.
Yeah, pretty close, Sandra. If it's life-threatening or fatal is usually the line where they're going to investigate. Now, what people should understand, too, is that modern vehicles have a thing called a sensing diagnostic module in the car. Everything's electronic. We've got the airbags, all that.
I know what that is. I know what that is. But can you explain it to Diana? Because Diana clearly doesn't. I clearly know what that is.
Diagnostic?
Yeah, well, the car's all electronic. And one of the ways to reduce injuries was airbags. And when they came up with that idea, they had to have a module that would deploy the airbag. And initially, for maybe some civil reasons, but mainly engineering, they had the module record what the car was doing, so they'd know if the airbag should or shouldn't have deployed and what caused it to deploy. And now, in the last 20 years or so, they've become quite advanced. So what it will give is 5 seconds pre-collision of speed, braking, did the ABS cycle, yes or no? Was the cruise control on, yes or no? And it will even know steering inputs because there's side airbags. So if someone says, we'll say it's a serious crash at a four-way stop, somebody says they stopped, or they both do, they plug in and the SDM says, this guy's doing 70 kilometers an hour and then slams on the brakes, like maybe sees the stop sign at the last moment. And so it's all right there.
Oh, wait, that's the thing that the insurance company offered me to track my car.
Very similar. No, that's a different thing.
I declined it.
Yeah. Some of the insurance companies now will charge you by use. So they plug a little module into the diagnostic port in your car, that little plug where the mechanics figure out the check engine light, and that will record GPS and speed and all that kind of thing. So they'll say, well, you only use the car this much. Here's your fee.
Right.
But also, if there's a crash, there's even more.
You know, for us, as personal injury lawyers would be helpful too, is if you have a dash cam or some sort of recording device, it's helpful so that later on, it's not the he said, she said. There are ways for us to do it. There are ways for us to reconstruct. Reconstruction reports are so expensive. They're $15,000 to $20,000 sometimes. Just to, yes, because it's a time. It's a very specific. You need engineers to go in. It's very expensive, and if the case is worth $15,000 to $20,000, you're not doing a report for $15,000 to $20,000. It's ridiculous. So, us as personal injury lawyers, unless it's a very serious accident claim and liability is questionable, we don't do it. So, Cam, what advice would you give for people about stop signs in general and documenting what happens?
Well, first of all,
Full stop.
Yes.
Step to the right.
Yes.
yeah. No, well, first of
Everybody
all,
at the same time.
dash cams start at $50 on Amazon.
Right.
And there's no real installation. You don't need a mechanic to put it in. But if the car doesn't have one, you should always take pictures with your phone of the scene.
Right.
Is a really important thing. And that's basically sort of the key is preserving the evidence, whatever evidence there might be, because at a four-way stop, there's not usually, unless there's a pedestrian involved, there isn't usually a serious enough injury for diamond and diamond, I would think, unless somebody's really going fast.
It depends. It depends on how quick they're going, and it depends on how quick they're going. It depends on the injuries, but any evidence we have that we don't have to recreate after the fact is always cheaper and better, and then we don't have to spend money on engineering reports and that sort of thing.
And I guess there's the fail-safe stuff, right? Like, I guess when you guys arrive on the scene, especially at a four-way stop, let's say all four cars collide at the same time. I don't know what ever happened, but 2 cars collide. I guess you guys are testing for alcohol.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. There's all the usual stuff. Does anybody appear that they might be impaired? Are there any witnesses? Although witnesses are hard to get these days. People don't want to get involved in the court process, and they often don't hang around. But just some advice to drivers is there's one thing to have a right of way, but if it's your right of way, are you just going to go anyway and then have a crash and
Right.
then it's a he said, she said? So what I always do is just make sure the other guy's going to stop. And if they don't, or sometimes the somebody's impatient, and the little old lady stops in front and takes forever, so the guy behind just goes with her.
Right.
Just make sure.
Yeah.
Give it an extra beat.